It's Sylvie with the San Diego Bike Coalition, and I'm joined today by my good pal, Jess, also known as Yeyo. If anyone has been tuning in on Wednesdays, we've been doing this like weekly Wednesday at 5 thing. Bike Coalition shows up on YouTube with somebody that we know and love, and we talk about bikes. And that's the plan tonight. I've known Jess since college, and we'll be talking about bike stuff. But Jess, you want to do a little intro? And do you want to go by Yeyo? Should I go by V? Should we change it up?
Sure, let's do it. Hi, everyone. My name is Yeyo. I am a mechanic here in New York City. I'm based in New York City. I currently live in Washington Heights. As Sylvie mentioned, I met Sylvie in college when I started tinkering with bikes at our school's co-op. I went on this trip, the freshman trip, 69-mile bike ride down the California coast, and all the leaders of that trip were super cool, and I later found out that they were all like working at the bike shop, and I was like, all right, that's what I get to do. And I love bikes, I love riding, I love working on them. It's just a very freeing experience.
Hey, look, I have the bike shop we used to hang out at. That's it. That's what it looks like now.
That's the new shop. Actually, it was inaugurated year after, so I have never actually been in that shop.
That's so cool. I've been to visit once, and I helped design it, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. When Jess and I met, actually, when I got to college, we didn't even have a shop. We had like the basement of a building, which has since been taken down. So when Jess and I met, the school had given us what used to be like a shed off to the side of one of like the student like kind of union buildings. That became the bike shop, but it was in LA. It had like slats instead of walls, and so like all the elements affected you. People could like climb in the side. You could like get on the top of it. It was definitely not a well enclosed space. And then they built this beautiful thing, which is like, this is how much they valued bikes at the school we went to.
Yeah, it was definitely a really cool program, and you had people from all of the different colleges nearby come by to get bikes from us.
We used to do this thing. We would like collect all the bikes on campus, fix them up, and then give them back to students. And when I was involved, I feel like we would collect about like 150 bikes, and between like 10 staff, we would get them all fixed in the span of like a week.
Yeah.
Is that going on with you?
I actually have, it's really funny because I remember there was a contest. We had a contest, and everyone who was at the shop had to like fix as many bikes as they could, and then the winner was going to win a multi-tool. And by some weird reason, I ended up fixing the most bikes, and I got the multi-tool, and I still have it to this day.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. I like that kind of competition.
It was very motivating to be like, how do I do this? How do I fix this? I was like, I'm going to get that multi-tool.
Nice. That makes me think, a thing that I get asked all the time is like how I got into fixing bikes. It's not like how I got into cycling, because I think with a lot of people, like, that's just not as amusing. Like, most people assume, like, you've always biked, which is not the case. But the how you got into bikes as a mechanic comes up a bunch, especially, like, being a female identity mechanic. So I'd love to, like, put that question to you. And you've explained how you got into bike stuff, but, like, what took you to that next level of deciding, like, I'm going to be a bike mechanic. I'm going to fix bikes in a shop and get paid?
Honestly, it was... Sometimes how I think about it is like as a thing of like destiny or something, or like it was put in my path for me. Like I said, I got into like mechanics in college, right? Like started figuring basic stuff like fix the flat, adjust your brakes, but nothing big. And then I graduated, came back home, had a bunch of loans to pay, so I started bartending. And I bartended for about 5 years. And then I was at a point in my life where I just needed to make some changes, and the bartending lifestyle was just like not for me anymore. And so I started branching out to different things. And I was like trying to like find places to volunteer. Because for me, like being of service and doing like good good things for others helps, like makes me feel better. So I was like, oh, let me start volunteering. And then I came across this bike shop here in Brooklyn called Recycle a Bicycle. And they had volunteer nights every Wednesdays. So I was free on Wednesday nights. So I went over to Recycle a Bicycle, and it was really cool. It reminded me a lot of like Pitzer, and like just chilling at the bike shop, fixing some bikes, you know. People went and got beers after, and we just like hung out and talked and like listened to music on the shitty computer, you know. And so I just kept going back, and eventually the manager at the time, I think they were a little short staffed, and after a couple weeks, he like, I guess he must have realized that I knew a little bit more than just your average volunteer. And he asked me, he's like, oh, have you ever thought about going back into mechanics? He was like, we could use an extra pair of hands. And I was like, no, not really, but maybe. And so then I was up front, and I was like, I know very basics. I'm not, and I haven't done this in years. And he was very kind and like generous, and was like, you can come on as a junior mechanic. We'll teach you everything you need to know. You'll learn and get paid as you go along. And that's how I got into mechanics. In my first 3 months there, like it was just me. They worked similarly to how we did. They were nonprofit bike shops. So they would receive donations from the public, and then we would completely refurbish them and sell them at like affordable prices. So like recycle a bicycle, you know, try not to like keep buying new things, but recycle as much as possible, which I love, like the Stay Green mission. Yeah, so for the first 3 months, all I did was like take bikes apart, completely rebuild them, take bikes apart, completely rebuild them. And because it was donation based, we had all different kinds of bikes. And I just learned by doing. And now I've been at it for 2 years, and I'm only now starting to really feel like confident in my abilities. But
yeah, I feel like so much of it is about like just having the chance to do it, and like having someone who's willing to like, you know, hang out with you while you fail a couple times. Because I definitely showed up like wanting to get a bike shop job and was like, okay, I've got these basic skills. And because of like not looking like a typical mechanic, you know, I think I got a chance that I maybe wouldn't have had if I was just like, you know, some like young boy who was like, let's fix bikes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was also definitely played a role, because I remember David told me, he's like, yeah, and we'd love to like mix it up, because at the time it was just like a bunch of dudes. Which I'm kind of used to right now. All the shops I've worked at, I'm like, except for Pitzer, it's just me and a bunch of dudes.
Dude, it's so typical. And anytime like a woman comes into a bike shop that has another like female identifying person, you have this like instant bond and like excitement. And with that said, like sometimes even that is like a little disappointing, because it's like, oh, it's such a shame that this is so uncommon that like you need to call me out and like tell me I'm a woman and that's special in this situation. You know, does that happen to you?
That does happen to me, especially with men that get pointed out more. Like,
oh, yeah.
They're like, oh my God, a female mechanic. I've never seen one, or you don't see them often.
I know I'm special.
I just sort of try to brush it off a little bit, because I'm like, you know, I want it to definitely be something that is more common, and to not be seen as like strange.
Yeah, no, that's all it is like, it would just be cool if it was so normalized and we had so many like female identifying mechanics that people didn't say anything about it. So thinking about some questions that I get a lot, what's a skill that you wish people knew? And I'm thinking like when someone comes into a bike shop and is like, oh my God, I need something, like what do you wish that all people knew going into bike shops? Because one thing I think of with this is like, I wish people knew a little bit more about like bike fitting when they come in, because a lot of times people will just be like, this is the bike I have and I love it, and all the things about it suck, but I love it. And if like a bit of like the bike education people got someplace else was it shouldn't feel bad to bike. Like saddles shouldn't be uncomfy. That would just make it so much easier to like have that next conversation with someone. Because I've had a lot of talks with people who've been like, no, I'm going to keep it the same way it is. Like, just like give me new brake pads. And I'm like, no, like this bike is 2 sizes too big and it's not safe.
It's actually a really good one, and that's one that I get a lot, like especially when selling bikes. It's like people are like, how do you know what fits? And to be honest, I didn't know about that when I got into bikes. I remember at Hitzer, there was a semester that I rode. I really did love this bike. It was like a blue Motovacane road bike, but it was definitely too big for me. And I didn't realize that was dangerous, but now that I look back on it, like those are things that I definitely want people to be aware of. And then what's the other I think also like a little bit like of like basic like bike anatomy. Like the difference between a wheel and a tire, for example. Because sometimes people are like, I think I need a new wheel, but really they mean the tire. And especially over the phone. When people ask you questions about their bikes over the phone and you're like, oh, it'd be easier to see the bike.
Okay, I'm pulling up a bike anatomy image that I totally love, but when I click it, it opens a Pinterest page, so I'm not going to do that. But this is maybe one of the coolest bike images. And I feel like we had this college someplace because it's just beautiful that each component is like named with what it is. Yeah, I'm on the same page though. I wish people just knew like enough about the components that it's less intimidating to like talk to a mechanic about this stuff, but also like people can't always explain what they need if they don't know the names of things. And it's so accessible, like Google bike anatomy and this is it, all about bike anatomy. This stuff is the best. Ugh, the exploded bikes.
Yeah.
Okay, I was also thinking about just some of like the funny stuff that goes on behind the scenes at a bike shop. Do you have any like funny bike shop stories, like about clients coming in, about bikes that you've had to fix, about, I don't know, anything that happens at a bike shop that would be fun to talk about? It's tough without me like letting you know these questions in advance. It's so on the spot. It's about that.
What's it like working at a bike shop? I don't know. It's just like every day is so different. Like all of the problems that you encounter, and all the different kinds of bikes. I can't think of any stories at the moment.
I guess one of the eye-opening things to me was like compatibility with components and how like I was at a bike shop in Austin, Texas named Cyclocross, and we had one guy whose job was just to like sit at a lap shop all day, pick which death metal song we'd all listen to, and also like match components. So people would come in and be like, I'm building a new bike. And he'd be like, okay, what do you have on it? What do you want it to look like? How do you want it to feel? And he just had this like wealth of knowledge in his head that I don't even know like how he amassed, but anything you mentioned, he'd be like, oh, you'll need the wolf's tooth, this thing to go with it. Oh, you need like, he just knew exactly what people needed all the time. And I know it just comes with time, but that like blew me away that like I can get on a bike and like put anything on and fix anything, but knowing what goes with what at this like deep level was so beyond me.
Yeah, I worked with someone like that too at Recycle a Bicycle, and it was just, I was astounded. But that's something that I can fix most things, but it's hard for me to like really know what you need. It takes me a little while. Something that I find funny about bike shops actually is like how many tools you actually need, and there's like tools that literally just do one job.
Yeah, that's so real. And someone will be like, can I fix it at home? And you'll be like, you want to spend $50 on that one tool to use it once?
Right, exactly. That's something that I found funny. And then also just the names of bike parts and how like they can get kind of like inappropriate, and there's a lot of like inappropriate joking going around, like
yep,
spokes and nipples, lube, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that is so accepted, like behind the scenes, even though like you've been dealing with bikes for maybe a decade, to keep like joking about the names of bike stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a comment in the chat. I met a puppy at a bike shop last week. What about shop dogs? Do you guys have a shop dog?
We don't, but we do get a lot of dogs in the shop. I work down in the West Village, right by the river. So we get a lot of people that come in with their dogs. My favorite dog that comes into the shop is this dog. It's like a Great Dane. It's probably bigger than I am. It's like 6 months old, but it's huge. It's a black Great Dane. His name is Lucifer, but we call him Lucy. Cutest dog.
Awesome. Awesome.
You guys have a shop dog?
Do we have a shop dog?
Yeah.
When I was in Texas, we had a shop dog, and I totally can't think of the dog's name now, but it was like a little, like, I mean, it was a mutt. It was just like some little mutt, but it's the same guy who like knew all the component matching that had this dog, and he had this awesome bike that had a basket on it, and his dog would like get put inside the basket, which had a special like bag designed to like kind of close up. It might have been like a bike messaging bag, but he put his dog in it, so just his like head was popping out. And this dog, if I'm not mistaken, he took it to Kansas and he did the Dirty Kansas with his dog. I think. I could be off base, but this dog went like any place that he went and was so good about being in the basket.
Oh, yeah. I sometimes see people riding with their dogs and I get like scared that the dog's going to jump out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I think people think that a lot with like having kids on bikes, is that like something could happen, which is, I mean, the same reaction in an automobile with kids. But yeah, people get so freaked out about kids on bikes and pets on bikes and, you know, all those places because of like this feeling of being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand that. But I think if you have the right equipment and it's installed properly, it's pretty much just as safe.
Yeah, that's a good call. They make so many like specially designed things to like, you know, attach kids in and attach dogs in. And then it's just about like biking safely and being visible and, you know, being in places that you feel confident.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Any bike shop complaints? Any bike life complaints?
Bike life complaints. Before I used to like really not enjoy getting dirty. Now I don't mind it so much. I would just like walk out of there and have grease like all over my legs, all over like my face. Probably having to wash my hands like 10 times a day.
Yeah. I feel like people always expect that like mechanics should have gloves on, but it sucks fixing bikes with latex gloves on. You just like can't hold anything as well. Yeah, that's such a good call. I used to always have like black nails and like black stuff on my hands, and it doesn't wash off. And so you go anyplace else and people look at you like, what do you do?
Yeah. I think especially being like a woman too, like I felt like this weird sort of like, I don't know, like double standard sort of thing going on. And it took me, I'm going to be honest and say that it took me a while to like be okay with like being a little dirty and greasy. And then I also recently found like, I hate working with latex gloves. They're the worst. And I worked with just my bare hands for a long time. But I recently found a really awesome pair of gloves. They're like rubber, and they fit, which is amazing because I have really tiny hands. But they're like, but there are still some things that I really need to do with my bare hands. Like, you can't do it with a glove.
So speaking of tiny hands, okay, that's one of my gripes is that like a lot of times bikes get designed to fit this like medium to like man size hand, and folks don't even tell you about things like shims to go in the brakes and like how you can like change how much the brakes extend out so you don't have to pull them as much. But that to me was mind-blowing that all these like adjustments exist, but all these things have been designed to fit like a specific body type. And if you don't know about the adjustments, you just kind of go on thinking like, okay, well, this is just challenging. And like, my body is obviously not meant to do this.
Right. Little things like that for sure also have made such a big difference for me too. Yeah, and there are things that you don't easily find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes some twinkering around. And I know for me, for example, like as a small person, it's hard for me to find like a proper fitting bike. Like if you're either really small or really tall, it's really hard to find like a bike for you.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I love personally, I have a single speed Fuji that I ride. And I wanted to put some like swept back bars or like, the mustache bars.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I was still leaning too forward. I wanted something more of like a cruisery chill style kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I put a stem extender, and it just like made such a big difference. And a lot of people don't know about stem extenders,
Yeah, good call. So something that was new to me was pedal shims. And this one guy, I feel like his name is Paul, and I can't think of his last name, but he goes to all like the CABDA bike events, and the lesson he always teaches is like why you need to shim pedals. And mostly it's because like, a lot of people's bike like feet like don't sit flat, and like a lot of folks don't have the same length legs. And so just like subtle adjustments to like shim people's feet helps them like not get knee and foot and ankle issues, and helps with like pedal stroke and all that. So that was something that was like news to me, and it's mostly like competitive cycling and like distance cycling, but that you can like shim the cleats and the pedals and things to make them fit. Actually, I had a buddy who had like a decent enough like difference in leg size that he had a special pedal that he put on his bike to accommodate, so it had like a wedge in it. That was kind of cool.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into cleats yet, I have to admit.
Yeah. What intimidated? Yeah, why have you not gotten into cleats yet? Because a lot of people don't like cleats, and a lot of people like stay away a long time.
I guess just because I'm not used to them, which I think seems like kind of silly that I say it out loud, but I'm scared of not being able to like get out and like falling.
Yeah. But also you live in a city. Like, I can't imagine biking with cleats in a place like Manhattan when you have to stop and like avoid stuff constantly. It's one thing to like live in a town that you can just bike miles and miles and not stop.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. But a lot of people here do ride with cleats. There's a lot of people in the city who are really into like cycling. So we do get a lot of people asking about cleats. And I recently had to learn about them myself. So maybe one day I'll get into them, but we'll see when that happens.
So one of the tips I got, and this was mostly about like how to get into cyclocross and get good at like mounting and dismounting the bike, but I think it totally applies to cleats. You just need a bicycle, a field, and a bottle of whiskey. I took that to maybe not like quite as intense a level, and I spent maybe like a solid week with my little cousin who was 2, and she had a balance bike. And we had this like one lap that we would like bike all the time when she was getting used to balancing. And so I would take advantage of this like slow biking time to just like mount and dismount as much as I could to get confident with it, knowing that like, she's like biking on the grass anyway, and like she's not going to judge me because she's 2 and she kind of can't talk yet. So I finally got my mounting down. Dismounting, not as good at.
Okay. I will take those tips.
Cool. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Anything else that you want to say to folks listening? Anything about bike stuff that people should know? That was a totally open-ended question.
Yeah, there's so many things. I guess just to like not be as intimidated of like really learning and asking questions. I think that even for me, that was a little bit difficult. Like when I started learning about bikes, like a lot, like at Recycle a Bicycle, just being okay with being like, hey, I don't know how this works. Can you teach me?
Yeah.
And being okay with, even if I see it done once or twice, or maybe I'll do it a third time. And then if I still forget, being like, hey, I don't exactly remember how to do this. Can you show me again? You know? And yeah, not being afraid of, there are no stupid questions, really. And bikes are complex. So if it doesn't stick once, that's totally cool.
Yeah, I like that it's both those things. It's like, it's okay that you don't know, and also like, it's not easy. You know, we've put a lot of time to get to this place to like be confident and good at fixing bikes. You don't just like come into life like that.
Right. Yeah. And also that I think if you want to ride more and like anywhere that you're at, there's always like a group somewhere that you can join and do rides with. I think something that was stopping me for a while about biking was just that I didn't have anyone to bike with.
Yeah, that's especially a thing with women, is that women want to bike with women. And so when you can't find a community, you just don't do it.
Right, yeah. And even though I was started working at a bike shop at Recycle Bicycle 2 years ago, I didn't really start riding again until last year. The pandemic had a lot to do with it because I didn't want to get on the subway.
Yeah.
And it was cool. And then like a bunch of my friends got bikes, and then like me and my friend Katie, we ended up riding all the way down to Coney Island like a bunch of times and like hanging out at the beach. It was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we should close this down, but it's so fun hanging out with you, and I can't wait to be on the East Coast again and like stop by and see the bike shop you hang out at now. Also, I was told you might want to open a bike shop someday. Is that actually a thing?
It's in the air, where I am doing like my research and seeing how viable it would be. I would definitely want to create sort of like a community space. Teaching more mechanics is something that I'm like currently getting into with Get Women Cycling. We do an Ask a Wrench session every first and third Wednesday of every month. Open to women or women identifying folks, gender non-binary. And that's been a lot of fun and really is helping me to, they say that you don't really know what you know until you teach somebody. That's how and I know how to do a lot, but it's hard for me to sometimes put it into words. And it's great. I mean, like I've found working on bikes and learning about bikes to be very empowering. And I want to help other women feel empowered. And yeah, so that's something that I would definitely want to bring into like my space if and when that happens. And also with children, I'm actually in June and next Tuesday I've signed up to teach after school mechanics class to middle schoolers in Washington Heights. And I'm very, very much excited and a little nervous. I've not been around middle schoolers probably since I was in middle school.
Oh man, that's such a good age though. Like high school can be a little bit jaded even if they actually like the stuff that you teach them, but middle school kids like don't even hide the excitement when they have it. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a good night, and I hope to see you soon.
Sweet. Love you, V. Thanks for having me.
Bikes, bikes, bikes.
Bikes.